Hey, what is up, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at everything you might need to have a successful day catching lingcod and rockfish. I'm going to be covering the basics, the lures you might want, and a few tips and tricks that'll help you put yourself on some fish. Now, you don't need everything in these plain old boxes, but you might find something that you like and you might learn something new. And of course, if you guys have anything to add, any personal touches or personal recommendations as far as your favorite lures that I might not cover in this video, feel free to leave a comment below. This will be part one of a two-part series of all the gear you need to have a successful day catching rockfish and lingcod. We'll start off with the basics. Now, rock fishing can be pretty easy. Remember this, rockfish have small brains, big mouths, and big appetites. If the conditions are right and they're hungry, they're practically going to bite anything. Now, rockfish are pretty non-discriminatory, and you can catch pretty much any size rockfish on any size gear. And if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can start off pretty cheap with a simple shrimp fly rig. Now, if you're renting equipment, a captain's probably going to have a bunch of these pre-tied for you. Very simple. It just consists of like a 4-foot leader with 2 dropper loops and these imitation shrimps tied off to these big sharp hooks. Connected to that, you'll be attaching some simple lead ball weights, anywhere between 8 ounces to 24 ounces, depending on the current and depending on the speed of the drift. So if you are going on a rock fishing trip and you don't want to bring anything expensive, you just want the bare minimum, a double shrimp fly rig with a bunch of these lead balls is the bare minimum that you need. A little bit of squid goes a long way. You can tip the hooks with those, but trust me, if the rockfish are feeding, you don't even need to bait your hooks. Jigging these up and down is normally enough to get a bite. And if you are going to be targeting the bottom, chances are you're going to be targeting a lot of structure, which means a lot of snags, and you're going to be losing a lot of these. You're going to be losing a lot of your quick snap swivels. Now, a lot of guys like to use these 120-pound ball bearing supported coastal lock swivels, and I found these to be a pain in the ass, frankly, because oftentimes you can't get a lot of lures around this little turn in the hook point. Yeah, this keeps your lure really secure in the design of the coastal lock swivel, but you'll find that you can't get it through the eye of a lot of productive lures. And these are pretty expensive. Just for these 5 or 6, I paid about $7 or $8. And man, I mean, it's really easy to lose these per trip. These are cheap ones too. Oftentimes you'll find these for a couple bucks each. I can buy 100 dual lock clips and 100 barrel swivels to go with it. So these two on Amazon, I think I paid about $9 for these 2 packages on Prime with shipping, and I got something that actually accommodates a lot more of my preferred lures a lot easier. And guess what? If I lose it on the bottom, I don't lose a lot of money, because again, for the same amount of money I paid for these, I could buy 10 times the quantity of these. So now you know the basics of rockfish and lingcod tackle, but you want to have a little more sporting approach when targeting these fish. That's why I use lures. Now, this is my small to medium lure box, and no, you don't need all these lures, and no, you don't need them in all these colors. I especially don't. But there's a reason why I have so many, and there's a reason why I do have so many colors. And as I go through them, maybe I'll justify why I have so many. So first up, we have your traditional old school flat fall style jig. Now, these flat fall style jigs imitate a dying bait fish and are meant to flutter through the water column. So you attach them to your quick link, you send it down, and once it hits the bottom, you pull up on your rod and let it fall ever so slowly, and as it does, it flutters through the water, moving a lot of water and catching a lot of light. And as it tumbles through the water, it imitates a dying bait fish and can be pretty deadly to all sizes of rockfish. So this lure isn't the one to go to if you're targeting specifically larger rockfish and bigger lingcod, but if you want a lot of medium-sized fish at a minimum, this is a great option. This is an original Shimano flat fall style jig. This is the Shimano Butterfly. You can see that I've had a ton of use on it, but there's a lot of imitators out there that do the job just as well. This is the Real Power Handles Butterfly jig. Has pretty much the same shape as the Shimano one, and comes in just as many colors. I tend to choose ones that have a silver side on one of them. If it's a nice shiny, bright day with no clouds in the sky, these can be great lures because they pick up so much light and they throw so much light. You want to really only use these lures if the current and the drift is, slow to moderate. You won't be able to hit the bottom if the boat is drifting really fast. So save these for when the boat is not rocking too much, and if the current is steady enough to allow you to get this lure to the bottom, pull it up and let it flutter with some control. And similar to the butterfly jigs, in the same category as the flat fall jigs, we have the crippled anchovy style jigs. Now, just like the butterfly jigs, these are meant to be sent to the bottom, yanked up pretty hard, and sent back down in a controlled fluttering descent. Now, just like the butterfly jigs, these are meant to perfectly imitate a dying bait fish, in some cases even more. The reason why I like these is because they have a smaller profile and they often come in smaller sizes. These are great presentations if you're in shallower water because they do descend and flutter a little slower, and they have a smaller profile, so they're great from small vessels, specifically kayaks. So if you're looking for a really effective jig from a smaller vessel and want the same action as your bigger butterfly style jigs, these crippled anchovies do a great job. And to round out the flat fall category, we do have the bigger kind of diamond style jigs. This is an SK jig by Daiwa, and man, this is one of the most effective jigs that I've ever used. And they're not cheap, but they're super effective. This Daiwa SK jig in the zebra pattern that you see here, extremely effective for not only rockfish but big lingcod. Something about the profile of this as it's going down, as you yank it up, as it spins and flutters, drives rockfish crazy. And you'll average larger fish, in my opinion, with this style jig versus the traditional flat fall style jigs. This pattern, the zebra pattern, is a UV based paint. So if you want to charge up this glow paint with a light, or sunlight will do, any UV, it totally kills it. But if it's sunny and the water's relatively clear, and you want if you want to go with a similar diamond bar shaped presentation, this P-line diamond jig also kills it. Also pretty expensive. This one was about $16 to $18, something like that. But man, look at all that iridescence in the finish. It catches and throws so much light. Now, this is a pretty big lure. This is a pretty big presentation, but I've caught some good sized lingcod with this lure on a nice bright sunny day with clearer waters. The P-line diamond bar can get huge fish. And last but certainly not least, we have a bunch of skirted jig heads. Now, similar to how you present skirted jig heads like bucktails to the surf for surf species, you can do pretty much the same thing to rockfish and lingcod. So we have a Spro squid skirted kind of bucktail jig here. Oftentimes you'll find rockfish and lingcod with squid and octopus in their stomach contents, and they love that stuff. So the right skirted presentation can definitely imitate a lot of things, especially if you know what you're doing as you're bouncing it off the bottom. This Spro, again, represents a squid. This large 4-ounce bucktail here, it rattles. It's pretty cool. This one was made by Michael Chacon of Mac Jigs. Mac Jigs for You, a nice local maker. He customizes your jig heads to any paint color scheme, so definitely recommend his services. I'll leave his information in the link below. But basically, the reason why I like to go with the custom setup is, one, because I'm supporting a local maker, and two, I can dial in the presentation based on the forage that I know exist down at the bottom. These jig heads come in all different colors, sometimes custom, sometimes pre-made like this one. Here I have a halibut skirt, works just as well with about a 6-inch chart white grub. Will work also, and you can also go with the internet setup. This is a Kaivo big octopus kind of imitation jig head with another rubber skirted presentation here, 2 6 hooks tucked back here. I've had luck with similar presentations as this one, catching big rockfish. So now you know the basic tackle for catching rockfish and lingcod, and now you know the basic lures that you would need to catch a variety of sizes. Well, if you're bored with those and you want to target the really big ones, the bigger lingcods, the bigger rockfish, the stuff that is the trophy PB range, this is the stuff you might want to consider here. So this is what I consider my large presentations, my large lures, my large metals, my large swim baits. And having presentations like these definitely filter out all the smaller rockfish and really target the big ones. I mean, if you look at the size of my hands in relations to these baits, they're pretty big, and these are the lures you're going to want to use if you want to catch double-digit rockfish and double-digit lingcod. So starting with the metals again, if it's a nice bright day and you think daylight is actually hitting the bottom, regardless of how deep of water you're fishing, you're going to want to start with something bright and shiny that catches a lot of light and throws a lot of water around. And I've had a lot of luck with these crocodile spoons. Now, crocodile spoons are great all-around lures for the surf. And if you want to catch a really big rockfish, if you go up in weight, this is a 6 or 7 ounce, I believe, and I have another 8 or 9 ounce one in there. This is a great way to get the attention of a large rockfish or a large lingcod. Send it to the bottom, let it flutter up, let it have a controlled descent, and if done right, you'll actually feel it fluttering and vibrating as it tumbles to the bottom. Repeat, and you're guaranteed to catch something pretty big. This particular one, I caught a cabezon in 150 feet of water, which is pretty rare, so pretty proud of that. I'm pretty happy to have this lure in my arsenal, and if you can find ones with holographic stickers embedded underneath the epoxy or clear coat, all the better. Whatever it takes to throw the most amount of light around. And you don't have to go as fancy as a holographic sticker on a crocodile spoon. You can go with an oversized Castmaster-like blank. Again, all these metals here available on realpowerhandles.com. Use my promo code ishwithfish for free shipping on everything at any time. Now, a presentation like this is great for not only targeting rockfish, but particularly blue rockfish. And blue rockfish, for whatever reason, especially when they school up right under you, tend to love the shiny metal stuff in the middle of the water column. If you catch the right one, man, that's a great live bait. And if you want to go even older school and you want to keep throwing metals around, can't go wrong with the hex bar. This is about as old school as lingcod lures get. For some reason, large lingcod, especially the big females, really like these in the spawning seasons in late winter out here in the California coast. Throw one of these down and you'll be surprised of the size of lingcod you might catch. Now, moving along to the next group of metals, we have our speed jigs. This is a Williamson Abyss speed jig. Now, this is the fastest way to get a presentation down to the bottom that I've ever used. There's a reason why it's called a speed jig. I mean, look at the profile of it here. This is, I think, a 5 ounce one. I have them in 6 and 9 ounces also. Man, these are super efficient at getting to the bottom first. Now, let's say you're on a busy charter and you want to get your presentation down the fastest and you want to beat all the guys in the boat. This is the lure to do it. I think this is originally meant for big tuna, but you can definitely catch a lot of rockfish with these. I found that if you throw a skirt on the assist hook of this lure, you get even more results. Something about the presentation attracts the fish. They don't tend to hit it. If it doesn't have some kind of flash on the end here, they're not going to hit the bare hook. Again, this is a tuna lure, I think, but put a mooch rig or squid skirt on one of the assist hooks, and not only will you get to the bottom faster, but you're going to get hit by something. So definitely a consideration if speed is the name of the game. And finally, we move into the molded plastics, the swim bait kind of section of this review. And honestly, I think this is what a lot of you guys are probably waiting for, because in my opinion, of everything you've seen here, this is probably the most consistent way to catch a large lingcod. Something about these swim baits present a really nice natural presentation to lingcod. Again, the bigger rockfish and the bigger lingcod, they hold the structure. They're big and lazy, and honestly, they don't exert a lot of energy, and it takes lifelike movement, kind of fluttering right over their heads to trigger a bite. If they're feeding, they're going to hit it, but if they're kind of in place in spawning mode, they might not be attracted. So anything natural like this is definitely going to trigger a bite. Check this one out. I've had this one for a couple years now. I've had a lot of rockfish and lingcod hanging off of it. Still works. I mean, just because it's chewed up and all holy doesn't mean it's not going to give me the action that I want to catch a rockfish. The red and white candy cane stripe color and this kind of brown root beer watermelon color seems to do really well. So if you're like me and you love throwing big swim baits at the bottom, get yourself some 5 to 7 inch sizes, and with jig heads anywhere between 5 to sometimes 9 or 10 ounces. And keep a bunch of these on you, because if you lose and snag one of these, you're going to be really bummed. So I always keep at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these jig heads handy, as well as different color swim baits. And one of the nice things about throwing swim baits is the versatile presentation you can use when throwing them down. This is a Lunker Lordz Lingcod Leader. Now check this out. It comes pre-tied with a little swim bait here, a nice little flasher here, and a nice clip here to attach any of your pre-existing swim bait setups. Now the nice thing about this setup is that it presents effectively a small school of bait fish. And if you're throwing a similar dual swim bait setup and you don't have a small imitation swim bait like this one, I think this is a Stormer brand swim bait here, you could always throw on some Berkley power worms. They tend to do really well, especially the scented kind. If you are throwing, if you want to spice up your swim bait presentation, throw an extra dropper loop about a foot or two above the main swim bait, throw on one of these power worms, and you'll catch yourself a nice size rockfish or lingcod. Oh, and last but not least, I know you're probably waiting to see what the heck this thing is. This is an imitation sand dab. Yeah, they make these too. So not only do they have fake fish, but they also have fake flatfish. So this is this thing's huge, a 400 gram, nearly 1 pound jig head with a big sand dab silicone body. Now, if you're, in an area where there's huge rockfish and huge lingcod and you don't want anything else, if none of these are getting the targeted species that you want, or at least the targeted sizes, then just ramp up to the biggest possible size and throw down a presentation like this. Because this eliminates practically everything in the food chain down there, this is, probably not going to get hit too often. If you do, you might have a small lingcod or small rockfish hanging on to the tail for dear life as it flutters through the water. Be patient and let me know if you ever hook into something big enough to eat something like this. And so, now you know everything you need to know about lingcod and rockfish lures. Well, at least according to me. Now, I know a lot of guys are going to look at this and say, I don't need any of these toys. Give me some simple shrimp fly rigs like this and some strips of squid and some ball weights, and I'll catch everything I need to catch that's underneath the boat holding to the reef. And that's absolutely true. Well, I present to you the triangle of probability. Think about it like this. Yes, you could take shrimp fly rigs and put little pieces of squid and some weight and send it down to the bottom, and you can catch anything from a small juvenile rockfish to a 30-pound lingcod. You totally can. But as you progress from these shrimp fly rigs to the smaller to medium lures to the larger lures to the absolutely giants, this is how you progressively weed out the smaller rockfish and target the exclusively big ones. If you want to have a simple day and give yourself every opportunity to catch all kinds of fish, sure, just bring some cheap shrimp fly rigs. They only run for a few bucks per liter. Buy a box of squid for $5 or $6 and have fun. But if you want to have a sporting chance and increase the size of your catches, go ahead and take a look at the different medium to small lures that are presented here. The reason why I have so many small to medium lures in different colors and styles is because I like to mix it up dependent on the forage that's down there and dependent on the conditions that I'm fishing in. So if it's a bright shiny day, I'll throw out some color and some flash. If it's a muted day, I'll throw out the darker colors. Depending on the current, I'll throw different styles of presentations. I found mixing it up definitely increases your chance of catching fish. Again, these are predatory fish, and sometimes they're keyed into one thing and not the other. So, rockfish are weird sometimes. What worked an hour before stops working, and you got to mix it up. And if you want to target the larger rockfish and get into the bigger lingcod, then I start throwing the bigger presentations, the bigger crocodile spoons, the bigger speed jigs, the bigger swim baits, and the old school, diamond jigs and hex bars. Stuff like this will totally weed out the smaller juvenile rockfish, and you can really get into the double-digit size lings with stuff like this. And if you want to go really big and absolutely minimize the chance of catching really any rockfish and go specifically to large lingcod, look at big lure presentations like this. There's a good chance you're going to skunk most of the day, if not the whole day. But if you do happen to get a bite, it's going to be big, and it might be a PB trophy class lingcod. So with that, thanks again for watching. If you're interested in any of the products that I've shown today, links in the description below. Any purchases made through those associate links directly support content like this. And if you guys have any lure recommendations or tips or tricks that you'd like to add to the arsenal shown today, feel free to leave a comment below. It's always fun to educate you guys as well as educating myself. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys out on the water.